Hello, hello, friends. How are you? Happy Friday. Come on in. Thank y'all for being prompt and on time. Let me know if I should turn off this little light right here. Yeah, I'm gonna turn that off so you can see me. And let me know who's here. Listen, if you are at work, if you whatever you've done to take time out of your day on a Friday, I appreciate you. I'm thankful for you. And this is going to be worth it. Okay. So let me know who all is here in the chat and I'm getting ready to share my screen. Happy morning, Tiffany. Where are you joining from? It's afternoon here in New York City. So let me know, Sherelle in Atlanta, or Cheryl. Let me know which way you say it. Aisha and Kamisha. Oh, fun, fun. All right. So this is gonna be good, y'all. I feel the energy. I'm feeling good. I got my workout in, so I am just ready to yap and talk back to y'all as well. Also, do you have a podcast yet, or are you thinking about starting one? So let me know in the chat too, because I love to know where you are. Of course, as I'm about to share in a second, this is for either case, but I'm just always curious, like who is here. So, all right, let's jump into it. Today's class is called Start the Podcast That Builds Your Exit Plan and Frees You from the Career That You Have outgrown. And I'm your presenter, Nikayla Matthews Okome. I'm the host of my own podcast, Side Hustle Pro. If you have not listened or watched and just came here because of the ad, then go ahead over to at Side Hustle Pro to get caught up after this. Now, as I mentioned, this class is for a lot of different people, right? This class is for you, though, if you have a few central emotions and scenarios going on right now. So if you feel burned out, uninspired, and ready for a change in your career, then this class is for you. If you want to use your voice and your expertise to open new opportunities outside of your 9 to 5, this class is for you. And if you know you're meant for more. All of you, I know you're here because you know you're meant for more, but you aren't sure how to make it happen. We're going to talk about that today so you can make this happen finally this year. And then this is for you if you want to build a platform that makes you discoverable to the right people. That's a key part of what I do. Not only do I help you launch your show, but the main thing that I focus on inside of my Podcast Moguls program, where I coach podcasters, I focus on helping you grow that show, amplify your show. There are a lot of podcasts out there, but knowing how to market your show and get it in front of people that eventually become clients, eventually, respond to sponsor messages so you get more sponsors. That is the piece where I specialize in. Okay. So, all right, there are a bunch of you who are getting ready to kick it off. Okay. And Janelle, oh, if that's who I think it is, I think I've seen you in the Side Hustle Pro community. So you're interested in the tech piece. Okay, that's good to know. Voiceover work. I interviewed someone. So yeah, that's something I want to do as well. All right. So everybody's in different places. But again, that central core tenet of wanting more right now, right? So if you're in a place and your career, it pays the bills, but it is draining your energy and your soul, and you want to build something of your own that opens new doors, this is exactly where you should be on Friday, January 30th. Okay. And you're in the right place too if you're ready to make your expertise, your story, your voice. Our voice is so powerful, y'all. Like it can do so much. So if you're ready to make your voice work for you instead of staying stuck in a career path that no longer feels aligned, then today's class is definitely for you. Back to the voice piece too. Like we use so much of ourselves, literally our voice for other people, for your job, your employer, your boss, all the time. What if we use it for us? And that's what I love about podcasting. Like, what if we take back our voice literally and spiritually and actually use it for us, right? So that's what I'm here to guide you through. And then, you're definitely here if you know you're meant for more, like I said, and you want to use podcasting now as that bridge from where you are now to the career and the life you actually want. And I love podcasting because it truly is that bridge. And I could talk about it till I'm blue in the face because podcasting is such an incredible tool and you can do so much with it. So you're going to walk away from this class truly understanding all the things you can do with it and how you can do it. Janelle says, using my voice is key in this season. Yes, yes, you are in the right place. Exactly. It's key in this season, y'all, and it's key in every season. All right. So after after this class, you will be 100% clear on what it takes to run a podcast that creates the income and the opportunities that you want, because it does take effort. Okay. And then the 3 steps that you can do today to turn your podcast into a platform that builds your exit plan this year. Again, I love that y'all are here kicking this off in January, because you have the whole year to make this happen, and you're going to make it happen. But let's backtrack a little bit, because again, I know some of you haven't listened to Side Hustle Pro. You came here because you saw an ad and it's your first time meeting me. So let's get acquainted. All right. I'm Nikayla. In 2016, I launched a hit podcast called Side Hustle Pro. It's the first and only podcast to spotlight bold Black women side hustlers turned entrepreneurs, okay, including myself. So I grew this podcast to 10 million plus downloads. I stopped counting after 10 million. I need to start counting again. And I also grew it to multiple 6 figures in sponsorship each year. And while I was doing that, it was my side hustle. I worked on this podcast at night, on the weekends. I interviewed guests after my day job. And my full-time job was at NPR, National Public Radio. And there I was leading their digital marketing, ironically enough, for their top podcasts, like How I Built This and Code Switch. And so while I was there, I started realizing, like, hey, I could really make this my own platform and my own job, essentially hire myself. So I worked on it. And then by the end of 2017, I left my job at NPR to run Side Hustle Pro Media full time. And I have not looked back since. I've been running this ever since. And it's why I've taught over 1,000 podcasters to run their own podcast business, because it has been tremendous to be able to do podcasting full time, and thrive and support my family and really have the flexibility that I need in my life. And I know that many of you need that flexibility too. So it is my mission to help podcasters turn their voice into income so that you can walk away from careers that no longer serve you. So a little bit of housekeeping. All right. We'll be here for about 60 minutes to ask questions. Use the Q&A box, please, so I can jump into those after I finish yapping. And try to give me as much context as you can so I could be as helpful as possible. Like, use me while you are here. Be thorough, be honest, transparent, and I will as well. And then, yes, there will be a replay available. So stay as long as you can, and then you'll get the replay for, only available for 48 hours, but you'll get the replay after this. And of course, I'll be sharing more details about how we can continue to work together. This does not have to be the end of our relationship, the end of our coaching engagement. You can hear all the details about the people inside of Podcast Moguls and how you can join Podcast Moguls group coaching as well, so you can grow and, amplify your podcast platform at well. So we'll talk about that at the end of this class. All right, y'all ready? Give me a 1 in the chat if you're ready. Nicole says, yes, I'm in the right place. Yes, you are. Lions Roar. Yes, I love that. Lions Roar Productions. Hello. Okay. Y'all are ready. Okay, thank you for the ones. So let's take it back. All right. I'm gonna start using musical interludes here, because if I could run it back, like Blackstreet, right? Back in May 2015, I posted this highlight reel and I look so successful. I am in my cap and gown, the sharp Mary Janes, legs crossed. I'm sitting here in front of the University of Michigan, Ross School of Business. That's where I attended and got my MBA in 2015, right? So I graduate, I post this highlight reel. And sidebar, this is why you can never get in your feelings about what you see on Instagram, because what you don't see inside this photo is that inside I'm actually freaking out, because at this point, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, right? I was rejected from Google. I interned there between first and second years. And historically, you're supposed to get the offer, and that's where you go work after you graduate. But I didn't get that offer. So I'm sitting here confused. I put all my eggs in that basket. I had my pride in that basket too, honestly. And so that's why I did not look anywhere else, because I was so determined to work for Google. And they were like, no. So I was graduating with no job. And at that time, moving back to DC to live with my boyfriend with no income and barely any savings, because I had been living my best life traveling in business school. So once I got back to DC, I said, I need to get my life together. Like this, I didn't go to grad school for that. No. I'm not going out like that. So at that point, I started realizing, okay, I'm applying for these jobs. I'm not getting these jobs. I knew I needed to build my personal brand, but I wasn't sure what that entailed. At that point, they did not cover personal branding in business school. Okay. It was simply like go work for CPG marketing. That was what they covered. Okay. And so I had to go and find my own additional life school. So I started following online branding coaches, people like Amy Porterfield and Maya Elias at the time, invested in learning from them. And they encouraged me to relaunch this tacky blog. Okay. I call it tacky because, as you can see, I'm grasping at straws, pulling fonts and colors together in Canva. And it wasn't the cutest. Okay. You can still see it too. You can go right now to KaylaKSpeaks.com and see that this is where I started. I had content at the time, but I had no purpose. I didn't know where it was leading me. I was really trying to impress employers and show them that I was analytical and then get a job. So I had no purpose really, but the important thing was that I got started. And this is the first lesson I've learned in my side hustle and my podcasting journey and my entrepreneurship journey. The lesson is you have to be willing to take the first step, even when you don't know where it will lead. A lot of my peers, friends, even, they're like, they got a job. They're said, okay, let me go and work and work and work. And then one day when I figure out what my side hustle or my entrepreneurial thing could be, then I'll quit. And I hate to break it to you, but it doesn't work like that. Like you have to learn as you go, and then it will lead you to the right thing. Okay. So that aha moment that they're looking for and that a lot of people are looking for, it comes gradually. It comes with action. It comes with mistakes. It comes with, okay, that's not it. Here's what I'm really gravitating towards. And that was my path, right? So for me, my initial action was starting my blog. I was interviewing the homies. They're on my header still. These are my actual friends, y'all. These are my friends who I interviewed. And the more I interviewed them, I realized I didn't care about writing about marketing trends and impressing employers. What I really and truly cared about was interviewing side hustlers, because I wanted to know how they were able to juggle their awesome side hustles plus their full-time jobs, right? And I love sharing the stories of Black women side hustlers and entrepreneurs. And that was when the idea for my podcast Side Hustle Pro was born. If I hadn't started the blog, I would not have Side Hustle Pro today. So if I hadn't started that ugly blog and just kept taking steps, I wouldn't be where I am today. So that's that first lesson, right? Plus, a year before launching Side Hustle Pro, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I was not a podcast listener. I learned about it by chance. And then this was 2015, remember? So this was around the time when a show called Serial was really big. Podcasting had one of its other resurgences because it has lots of resurgences. And so I said, oh, well, maybe I'll try out this podcasting thing. So there I was a year later into my blog turned podcast. And in the first 7 days of launching my platform, Side Hustle Pro, boom, I landed in the top charts. This is Side Hustle Pro on the left in the top 10 in marketing charts, and then on the right in number 37 in business. And if you look closely, you can see I'm above one of my virtual mentors, right? Virtual meaning I've never met her in person, but she's taught me so much, Amy Porterfield. The student surpassed the teacher. And that's what I want for all of my podcast mogul students as well. Like, take what I tell you and run with it. Okay. I have a student who has gone into working for Gabrielle Union from what he's learned from me. So that is what I want for you. Go forth and flourish. Okay. So Side Hustle Pro was even featured on Apple. Here it is above the New and Noteworthy is the main highlighted podcast, plus in in the bold women category here on the right. And when I launched too, I went hard on promotion. That summer, I had t-shirts printed up, and you caught me in this uniform. If you were out in 2016 in the DC area, because that's where I used to live, I was in this uniform at every women's empowerment event, brunch, conference. You would catch me, and it was a conversation starter. I got to speak with people who would become listeners. I got to speak with guests who I wanted to interview, and I had a reason to go up to them without feeling shy to, tell them about my show and ask them to be on my show. A lot of those guests ended up coming on my show. So I was so focused on that summer, because I realized exactly what I saw, exactly what you see on this quote. That's what I realized that summer. Okay. The quote says, knowing what you already know will keep you where you already are. So I realized that, hey, look, I've gotten my education and, I have, experience in all these different areas, but I still don't know how to do this. I still don't know how to run my own business. So I'm going to keep on learning, keep on investing because I want to go someplace that I haven't been. And I realized that I was onto something. And if I took it seriously, I could quit my job. I could quit my job. And that became my locked in focus. But it was a long term focus. I knew I wasn't going to do it overnight. I like mani pedis. I like getting my hair done. I knew I wasn't going to walk away from those to go live in a frat house with some bros, right? That was not going to be my version of entrepreneurship ever. So, and that's why I love this slide with the manicured nails. I knew I wanted to do this. So I started studying podcast monetization. Like, okay, how do people make money? How can I make money? Like, I'm an independent show. I'm not on a network. I'm not at NPR. So what can I do? And so that's when I started looking at conferences and I invested in a course to learn how to pitch sponsors because I determined that was going to be one of the first revenue streams that I explored. At this point, I was already growing Side Hustle Pro, right? So I said, okay, now it's time for sponsors. So to do that, I needed to invest. I needed to learn from someone who could take me from where I already was. So I invested $1,197 in a 2-day event sponsorship intensive. And that money, I did not part with that money easily. Okay. That was the most money I ever spent. And by the way, remember, I was unemployed for a while. So my savings were like nothing. And so I was just starting to really earn money again and build back up. So I did not I did not take that lightly, but I used an equation that I use for all of my business investments to this day, which is, would it be worth it if? And then the if for me was, okay, if I learn this skill, now I'm able to pitch sponsors forever because I spent this $1,197 once. Will it be worth it? And I determined, yeah, that'll be worth it to me. So it wasn't even podcast specific. What it was if you wanted to run a conference and get your conference sponsored, the instructor taught you how to do that. So I knew that was a big hesitation for me, like, this is not podcast specific, but I was just eager to learn the skill, to learn anything at all about sponsorship. So I said, all right, if I can learn this skill, I can apply what I know about podcasting and get the sponsors. And that's exactly what I did. 6 months after launching my podcast, I pitched my very first sponsor cold, and I earned my first $4,000 podcast sponsorship contract. Now, again, speaking of numbers, that's nothing to sneeze at, right? That was salary money. Okay. We're talking now we're like replacing salary. Now I'm like, okay, if I put in X amount of effort to get this $4,000 contract, what if I doubled that effort? What if I could get 8,000, right? So that's how I started thinking. In addition, I started exploring other revenue streams, such as teaching my own courses, teaching my own, workshops and speaking engagements. I started exploring each of those one by one. And so by December 2017, I was able to quit my job to podcast full time. And this is what I posted at that time. And you could go back and listen to that episode back in December 2017. And I actually shared with my audience too as I was going through this process. That's another thing with your podcast. No matter what your topic is, make sure you are sharing yourself with the audience too, your perspective, your lens, what's going on, because that's also how you build a community who rides for you because they feel like they know you. And I shared with them, here's what I'm doing. I'm setting up my LLC. I'm setting up my business bank account. I took them along for the journey. And so after that, Side Hustle Pro took off. It was featured on the Today Show, in Oprah Magazine, in Forbes. And then in 2022, I was inducted into the Podcast Hall of Fame, which is so surreal because I was there with like legends, and there I was like, what was I, 6 years into podcasting? It was just incredible. And I don't take this lightly. I'm so humbled and grateful, right? And it all came because I started building my exit plan. And at the time, it was unintentionally building my exit plan. When I first started the podcast, I did not know it would end up being my exit plan. I was in fact just thinking like, oh, I need to learn what business I could start. Let me talk to different business owners and see which one I want to start. And ultimately, it led me from graduating with no job and no money to the Podcast Hall of Fame, to running my podcast media company full time. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you, Kamisha, Sherelle, everybody. Thank you so, so much. And if you want to run your own business full time, can you just drop full time in the chat? Because again, I'm reading everything you're saying, y'all. So let me know. Do you want to be full time, or do you want to, just have a really lucrative side hustle? So say full time or lucrative side hustle. I'd love to know. Kanisha says full time, capital full, right? Emphasis on the full. So yeah, that's what I wanted. And the truth is, y'all, the truth is that if you are here today, I kind of know that already. I know that if you're here today, you don't just want to build your exit plan. I know that you don't just want to start a podcast. You want freedom. And freedom looks different for everybody, okay? Freedom does not have to be quitting your job. Freedom does not have to be entrepreneurship. But freedom from the corporate hamster wheel, yeah, that's a freedom we all want. Like just today I was watching, as I did a walking workout this morning, and so I was watching some YouTube videos, and I was watching videos of people who live abroad. Now, I don't necessarily want to live abroad, but I love the thinking of, you know what, if we just get off the corporate hamster wheel, the amount we need to live is not as much, right? So thinking about that, and people were podcasting from these locations as well, because their podcast pays them in USD, and then they apply it. So think about what your ultimate dream for your life is, right? Freedom from fear of layoffs, freedom from financial uncertainty. That's a big one, right? Because we're trying to pay these incredulous bills, from healthcare to heat now that is cold in some of our locations, right? So freedom to work and live on your own terms is one of the biggest benefits of podcasting. And also freedom in your schedule. Right now, I'm a mom of two kids, mom and wife, and I am able to, on a Friday, host a webinar, work out, like create my life and my working schedule around my kids, because motherhood is also very important to me and something I take, that I love doing. So freedom in my schedule was huge for me. So I know you've probably been trying to figure this out on your own. Try to figure out, should I take podcasting more seriously? How do I grow a podcast? How do I actually make money from it? Is it worth all the effort? Yes, it is. And how do I actually use it to shift my life path? I know that many of you have been wondering all of these things. And I want to say that yes, it is. And yes, you are a podcaster. That's another thing too. So many people think of podcasters as like this identity, like, oh, I'm not a podcaster. All podcasters are people who pick up a microphone and a camera. Like, it's not an identity or a thing you have to have, or a trait we build together inside of Podcast Moguls, right? So if you are here and you have been trying to figure this out, you have probably tried starting your podcast before, or even just starting to create content, posting on Instagram, posting on LinkedIn, dancing on TikTok. I know you've probably tried all of these things and the results haven't been great. And when you have that, experience, sometimes it's tempting to think, oh, maybe I'm not cut out for this, or I don't know what I'm doing. I need to stick to what I already know and what I already do. But no, that's exactly the time when you need to actually be proud of yourself for taking a step and understand that the results haven't been great simply because your mind is all over the place, right? And your mind is all over the place because there are a lot of people shouting and talking at you online. Right? And then these algorithms have you hooked on scrolling. So you get more shouting and more talking. And I'm here to tell you that when you really want to make progress, you have to lock in on one expert voice, because not everyone is showing you their receipts. Not everyone is qualified to speak. So you have to be careful what you take in, right? Take in an expert and apply what they tell you. Right? So that is the real reason why you feel overwhelmed. And here's the other reason why you haven't figured it out yet. You don't know the real power of podcasting. I promise you, you don't even know the real power of podcasting, because if you knew the real power, you would stop playing. Like, here's the real power of podcasting to me. Number one, it's the most powerful networking tool you didn't know you had. I have interviewed over 300 to 400 Black women entrepreneurs. I would say 80% of them I haven't met in person. but I am able to email them and call them up for advice. Everything from life advice before I was about to have my second kid to marketing advice, all because of this podcast. There is no networking event, no retreat I could go to in the world that would get me a network that is this authentic, rich, and real. And podcasting has done that for me. And then podcasting is also your bridge from where you are to the career and business you want, one conversation at a time. Again, I didn't know when I was starting Side Hustle Pro where it would lead me, but all this time I was actually walking over this bridge to my next life, to the next phase of my career, because I was having these conversations, understanding what was possible, and also learning how to do it. So that was the important part of the bridge. If you are confused right now, start a podcast. Start talking to people who you want to learn from. If you reach out to somebody with like, oh, can I pick your brain? They will shut it down and ignore you. If you reach out to them to be on your podcast, you are 50% more likely to get a yes. And now you get to learn from them, ask them advice on and off the mic. And then finally, your podcast is your launch pad to sponsorships, clients, speaking gigs, and partnerships that fit your next chapter. So if you want to work with brands, if you've been creating content and you're not sure how to actually have that lead to partnerships, then allow your podcast to be the launch pad. Okay. Allow your podcast to introduce you and be your portfolio. So that is the real power right there. It has nothing to do with downloads. It has nothing to do with what most people think, right? This is it right here. You could have a powerful network because of your podcast with or without however many followers you have online. This is it right here. This is what I use. This is my secret sauce. So if you knew the real power of podcasting, you would stop playing and you would really prioritize your podcast. And I know you want to because it's January and you're here because you know that this is going to be the tool that leads you there, right? So the good news is that you already have what it takes. Okay, your skills, your story, your lived experience, your voice, they are enough to start. That is all you need. You don't need a huge audience. None of that matters, okay? You don't need a fancy studio. You don't need a journalism degree. None of that matters. You just need the right steps to position your podcast as the bridge to your next chapter. So here are the 3 steps to turn your podcast into that bridge to your exit plan. I'll put bridge in the chat if you're with me and you're ready to get into these steps, because this right here is what is going to change your perspective, shift how you approach podcasting and get you there. Kamisha says bridge with the caps. I'm loving the caps, y'all. All caps, letting me know you're not playing around. All right. So yes, this is it. Okay, let's get into these 3 steps. Step number 1, you need to build a podcast that gets found by the right people. You need to get found, okay? And what holds most people back, I was literally just having a podcast strategy call with someone yesterday, 2 this week actually. And it was, so when you join Podcast Moguls, one of the fast action bonuses is you get a one-on-one call with me, right? And during these one-on-one calls this week, one person told me that she was thinking of having her podcast name and title be from her favorite old school hip hop artist, Rakim. And I was like, no, I had to shut it down because most people, this is what starts to hold you back. Starting a casual, just chatting podcast and giving it this vague title or clever inside joke that no one is searching for. You need to get found. And if no one is searching for your title, you're making your life harder. Okay. Your title by itself, your show needs to be getting found when you are sleeping. And so that is one of the first things we work through. And then what also holds most people back is staying broad with their content so you don't box yourself in, but you're really boxing out your audience instead. Because again, they don't know what the heck your show is about. They're like, okay, one day she's talking about this, one day he's talking about that. And listen, you can talk about different topics, but you got to make it underneath an umbrella that makes sense so that people can share it and say, hey, this is the show about. And so that people can know what to expect when they tune in, because that is what makes them follow and subscribe. And then what also holds most people back, especially today, 2026, is the on-camera stuff. All right, let's iron this out, okay? if you jump into in-person or video podcasts and pour money into gear and setups, number one, it's usually an excuse to like not get started right away, because then you get into like perfection mode, right? You start overthinking about other elements. What am I wearing? Do I need to get my hair and makeup done? What do the chairs look like? You start missing the point of the podcast, which is the content. So I'm not against video podcasts. I'm not against in person, right? Because I do video and I'm not against in person. But what I want you to remember is that if you do that without a clear plan, you are going to be draining money before you're even monetizing your show. So we have to do it smart. We have to go in with a plan. And that's what I'm here to help you build. Okay, so these are the number one mistakes that keep most podcasters stuck at the just content phase instead of actually building out their exit plan, instead of using this content to get them off the hamster wheel, right? And here's why it holds you back. People who need your show, they can't find you. And then once they find you, it's unclear what your show is even about. So, two ways you've just lost people before they even press play. Okay. And then you end up spending a lot of money on the wrong things. Again, going into the hole before we're making money? No, 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 not on my watch. All right. So here is how to build a podcast that actually opens doors for you. Number one, get found. Okay. Your podcast can help the right people discover you, but it can help the right people discover you, your story, and your expertise. Okay, but you have to be aware of how to get found. So this is a case study actually from one of my podcast moguls, OG Erica M. McAfee podcast. So, before I get into what was going on with this and how we revamped it, I'll just put in the chat why you think this podcast name wasn't the best name to have for your podcast, right? Because most people think like, okay, I want to build my brand. I'm going to name the show after me. I'm going to name it the XYZ show. Well, here's why that doesn't always work. Actually, that never works unless you're a celebrity. Number one, it lacked clarity on audience and mission. It was harder for the right listeners to find her because no one was searching for her name. No one is searching for your name unless they know and love you, or they're just stalking you, an employer trying to find out more about you, whatever. Okay. So once you launch too, you end up in this position like Erica was, where she was so focused on creating episodes, she was not building her platform. She was no longer fine tuning and tweaking the brand. But then she discovered Podcast Moguls. And once she was in Podcast Moguls, she and I got to work. And we recognize that the people who need her show, they need to understand what it's about. It is about sisters who have gone through loss, right? And your title itself, it doesn't have to be verbatim. It doesn't have to capture everything, but it needs to catch their attention. And once it catches their attention, they read your description and they go through your episodes and realize it's cemented. It's for them. So her show was about women who are sharing their experiences, trigger warning, of pregnancy and infancy loss. Okay. And sharing how they've been able to overcome. What an important and impactful topic. But they weren't finding her show because they weren't searching for her name. So once she rebranded with clear mission-driven positioning, she saw an immense change in the discoverability of her show. It instantly spoke now to the audience she wanted to reach, and it became discoverable, leading to more downloads, more opportunities, and more partnerships. So, and I love the vibrancy of it too, right? Look at her jacket, the subtle hints of the African diaspora with the prints. Look, you can still include your name, but it just doesn't have to be the centerpiece. And you definitely don't need to put podcast on your logo. All right. All right. So people are like, Joy says, I have no idea who she is and why I would listen to her. Exactly. Sherelle says it says nothing about the content, and all of you are on the money. Exactly. Right. So let me give you another example. But first, let me just cement that lesson, right? When your audience knows exactly who you serve and why, your podcast, it stops being just content that you're creating and it starts becoming a platform for growth and income, right? A lot of people get into podcasting and then they love it and they want it to grow. So then they just get into this just content. How many of you are or know somebody who they make content, like that they make content, but you don't really know where it's going. And to be honest, it's not going anywhere right now because there's no direction. So that is a bucket you could easily end up with if you do not do these strategic steps. So once you do those, it starts becoming a platform now for growth and for income. Another example is another podcast moguls OG. Her name is Lori Tharps. She came in with the podcast My American Melting Pot. As you can probably see from the various silhouettes on this podcast logo tile, it could be about anything and anyone. My American Melting Pot, it could be anything from food to, political discourse, right? You just don't know. So that is what she came in with, and she was struggling with that. She lacked a clear focus. She lacked audience alignment because no one knew who it was for. And then her episodes covered so many topics, making it harder for the right listeners to connect and keep coming back again and again. So she also got into that mode of being on the hamster wheel of focusing on producing content instead of building out the platform and building a growth strategy. And once she got into Podcast Moguls and really understood, like, hey, I need to refine my topic. I need to understand who I'm talking to. She actually launched a brand new podcast, okay? Read, Write, and Create. Now, this show was for her exact perfect listener, someone who is trying to write their first book and understand the publishing industry, understanding what it takes from a renowned author who has done this time and time again, which is Lori, okay? So when they're searching for Write and Create and they see this amazing bold tile with the old school typewriter, they stop in their tracks. Then they read the description and the episode titles and description and realize, oh, this is for me. Okay. So now she had clear niche positioning that speaks directly to her target audience. She had streamlined branding and messaging. So they made the show instantly more discoverable. And all of this led to stronger audience engagement and opened the door for growth opportunities. And that's exactly what you want your show to do. You want it to do this work for you, again, while you are sleeping. So when your podcast speaks directly to the people you want to reach, it creates a platform that attracts opportunity and drives impact. And speaking of driving impact, I also want to pull over and say with Side Hustle Pro, this was a similar trajectory that I went through. When I launched it and figured out, okay, I want to talk to Side Hustle Pros, like people who are just pros at doing this side hustle thing. The name itself got discovery in my sleep. Why? Because people related to the concept of being a side hustle pro, to trying out different side hustles while they're working, right? So I chose a name that was so clear that it drew people to me. And I didn't know yet how I wanted to make money, but it bought me time to figure that out because the audience was growing while I slept. And you want a similar thing to happen to you. Okay. So when people tell me their podcasts don't make money, the first thing I think, well, can people find it? Do they know what it's about? Right? Podcasts that don't make money, they just aren't discoverable. That's like their first problem. And the people who need their message the most can't find you. So make it easy for people to find you. If people can't find your podcast, they can't listen, they can't watch, and then they definitely can't buy nothing. They can't pay you. You can't make money if nobody can find you. It's as simple as that. Okay. So it starts with this trifecta: your podcast name, your podcast description, and your episode titles. Okay. Think of those as your discoverability power tools. You got me? Put tools in the chat if you're following along, because I can only dip over to the chat and glance and see what's going on. So put tools in the chat. Exactly. People need to know. No more wordplay, no more play on words. They need to understand. These are the power tools. Okay. Now, discovery, that's what's going to drive the downloads, and the downloads are going to drive the income. Okay. So now you got the discovery piece going. Let's get into step 2. Step 2 is to grow your audience by deeply understanding who they are and what they need. What holds most people back from doing this is pouring all their energy into that first phase, their podcast and the launch, and then you barely promote it each week. Okay, well, can't really discover who's listening to your show if you're just burnt out from the actual process of getting the podcast out there. What also holds most people back is skipping the work. Even before they launch, skipping the work of getting to know their audience, right? What they care about, where they spend time, and what they're searching for. And when you're in Podcast Moguls, I do not let you skip this work. This work actually gets done before you launch, or if you come in with a show before you relaunch, which a relaunch to me is you go in with a new strategic mind. towards your show. So this work has to be done before you do that. Why? Because you need to know who you're talking to. Okay. So, what holds most people back is treating their audience like a faceless group instead of like real people with specific goals, challenges, and interests. Now, when I was getting ready to launch my show, I had a perfect listener in mind. I got on the phone with people who fit this profile. I talked to them. I had epiphanies that help me to tweak the content. And then all of my content is created with this person in mind. My person's name is Janelle. She lives at NYC. She works for American Express. She went to NYU for her MBA. She's trying to start a shea butter business on the side. And she's trying to hear from other side hustlers to figure out how they did it while being entertained, right? So with Janelle in mind, I craft my content. You need to know your Janelle. Do not move forward another inch before you know your Janelle. Okay. So this is the smarter approach. Understand your audience to grow your audience. So I want you to meet Podcast Moguls alum Shanitria. She's the host of the Blunt Blowing Mama podcast, one of my favorite podcast names of all time. And speaking of getting discovered, I know you know what it's about. I know you know what it's about from those three words, right? So Shanitra came into Podcast Moguls wanting to grow her community. And she used what I teach inside Podcast Moguls, which is the Side Hustle Pro OMG formula to clarify her message, build content that resonated deeply with her audience, and then position her podcast and community for explosive growth. Here's what happened next. She actually wrote this testimonial for me, I didn't even request this. I was promoting this masterclass and she shared this in her Instagram story. Okay. She said, Side Hustle Pro is an amazing podcast coach. As someone who is one of her Podcast Mogul students, I can truly say she helped me get Blunt Blowing Mama podcast off the ground, grow BBM's IG page. I only had 3,000 followers when I started her program, and through her techniques, I've grown organically to over 21,000 engaged followers. Because of Podcast Moguls, I was able to find my tribe. Big key, y'all. And she says she even gave me helpful advice when I started BBM clothing line. And she really knows her stuff. And if you want to build a really successful podcast, then her Podcast Moguls program is worth the investment. So take it from the students and alums themselves. Okay. I am so passionate about helping people grow their platform. Shanitria grew from 3,000 to 21,000 in her first 3 months in the program. Okay. She grew Instagram followers by applying the strategies learned inside Podcast Moguls. Why is that important? You might be wondering. Well, that is part of your community. That is part of your community for your show. And Shanitria didn't stop there. Her audience kept growing as she stayed consistent. The student has surpassed the teacher. She has way more IG followers than me right now. And she is so incredible in her content. And now, again, sometimes you build the platform before you know where it will lead you. She can launch anything and her community is ready for it because she's a trusted voice. She's authentic. She's transparent. She allows people to see themselves. And when she is ready to launch something, they are ready to buy. And that's what you want as well. So she has grown an engaged community of 120,000 plus who not only discover her podcast, but also listen, share, and invest in her workshops and her membership community. So podcasts that struggle to make money often have another thing in common. They don't truly know their audience. They do not know who they're talking to. And if you don't know who you're talking to and what they need, it's nearly impossible to sell products, secure sponsors, or grow your business. If you come to me and you tell me you want sponsors for your show, you need to be able to tell me, well, who you're talking to, who are the sponsors going to talk to, right? Because they're gonna need to know that. So now let's get into step 3. Just drop step 3 in the chat because this is the last step and I want to make sure you're still with me. Janelle says, I feel like relaunch is exactly what former Flotus is doing with her podcast. Oh, yes, that's a whole side chat. Pull up for that. You know, we need a breakout group for the Flotus podcast. Step 3. All right. Thank you for timing in, everybody. Let's jump into it. Okay. So step 3 is now the making money piece, right? We started building our exit plan. All right, we have to understand, how could we make money? How will we make money? Okay. In order to do that, you have to start small and test different income sources and track what resonates most with your audience. The things that the revenue streams that I have, none of them just worked overnight like that. Each of them were tested, tried and true tests. Okay. But what holds a lot of people back is the fear of being seen, trying, and failing. Okay. And if you want to live this life and walk this path, you have got to try some things that are going to fail, and it's okay. You're going to see crickets sometimes. I'm working with students right now, and they've launched their very first offer, and the result was crickets. And I was like, congratulations, this is part of the process. You're on the road now, girl. That crickets, that is feedback. That tells you the offer's no good. The offer's no good. So now let's go and analyze why the offer wasn't good. All right. And that's another thing I love coaching my students through. Let's understand, because you cannot, in theory, write up a plan, launch something, and have a guaranteed win. That's like trying to have a guaranteed viral post. That's not how it works, right? So once you're in that arena, I will coach you through it, but you got to jump in. Okay. So another thing that holds people back is the fear that no one will buy. This is another part of the process. This is another, what do they call it? I forget the phrase, but yeah, this is part of the process too, right? I've launched some things as recently as last year, and I thought were a shoe in. Like my audience told me they wanted this. No one bought. No one bought. Y'all be lying. No, but people lie. It's a psych. It's a part of psychology. Sometimes people will say they want things that they don't actually want. All right. So as an entrepreneur, you have to push through that and not attach personal worth to that. Like, oh, nobody likes me. But no, okay, what about the offer did it resonate? What other questions do I need to answer? Okay. And that's what I coach you through. So the last thing is this fear of wasting money. Because sometimes, yes, you do have to invest money, right? You have to invest money in platforms to collect money, right? You have to get subscriptions to things to build out an email list. There is a fear of wasting money. And that's why you get a coach. I have a coach right now, and being able to touch base with my coach and talk through strategy, that helps me to be as efficient with my time and money as possible. Okay. Just the other day, I said, well, I kind of want to do this, but I need to do this. And she's like, that can wait. No one is bothering you about that. No one else is saying that's a problem. Focus on this. And that is what I'm doing. So that is what I do for my podcast moguls clients as well, because you only waste money when you're on the internet listening to everybody who's shouting at you and trying to do it all at once. Okay. You've got to lock in, focus on an expert voice, and apply what they tell you. So here's your next move though. You are going to launch one offer, start testing, and then let your audience show you what sells. Okay. So one of your first money makers could be something as simple as creating a paid ebook or a guide with useful information for your listeners. Now, I love this because it allows you to hear what people are asking you for and then quickly whip up an ebook. And by the way, when I was doing my first ebooks back in 2016, 2017, there was no chat GPT. The best you could do is like pay someone on Fiverr, right, to write it for you. But now you can write in tandem with chat GPT. You can give a whole outline. You could do the first pass and get it, jazzed up and refined. So you have no excuse. And if you are not comfortable charging, or hey, if people they don't buy at the price you put it at first, then make it free and just start to collect emails, understand what people want from you, and do one at a time. Okay. Let people really hone in and see what you have to offer. So this is a moneymaker I've tested in the past. Guess what? It didn't really sell. So I stopped offering it. But this is part of the process. You can also offer one-on-one coaching in an area of expertise. Now, some people don't like to use the word coaching, so you can also think about this as having office hours, putting time on your calendar. I use a tool called Calendly. It's founded by a Black man. And what I love about this is you have knowledge that people come to you for anyway. A lot of people want to, quote unquote, pick your brain, but they don't want to bother you. So it would actually make them feel good to be able to pay you for your time. So when you realize that, then you feel a little less nervous about doing this. So put some time on your calendar with a tool like Calendly, right? You can block off hours that you are available, and then put it out on LinkedIn or Instagram, whichever is your preferred platform, and tell people like, hey, I often get questions about XYZ. I've decided to open up a limited number of slots to have some office hours, and put it out there, and then start to practice. Like making money, you have to practice making money in order to make money. Just like anything else, lifting weights in order to build a muscle, money In order to build the muscle of making money on your own as an entrepreneur, you have to lift weights every day. You have to go into the gym and practice, practice, practice. Okay. Another thing, another money maker that I really enjoy is creating a course that your listeners need. Now, all of the courses that I have created have been listener requested. Okay. When I started Podcast Moguls, excuse me, when I started Podcast Moguls, it was because people were always hitting me up for podcasting advice. Because like I showed you, I came out the gate and I was so locked in. I was just ready to invest and build and do whatever it took. Because once I knew, oh, I could leave my job, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And that's the kind of person that I am. And I realized too that I have an advantage because I have a background in marketing and social media marketing. So my perspective was helpful to other people. And I decided to compile my knowledge into the course, but not only into a course, but to also have coaching calls every month because I realized that people really needed to have that strategic brain and not just be podcasting in silos. So that led me to a course and then also master the gram because I also had success really growing my business on Instagram. And what I love about courses for you too is everybody, even if you have the highest degree in the land, it can't teach you everything. If you graduated before 2024, 2023, AI wasn't a thing like that. So now you have to go to courses to get up to speed on how to leverage AI, right? So that's how you have to think about courses. People need your courses because there's just other things in life they need to learn. Same with podcasting. All right. And then another moneymaker that I really love, I'm going to share two more with you. As you're thinking about your path and how you can monetize your podcast, think about these options. There's so many ways to make money, y'all. These are just some of them. This is just scratching the surface. Another one is creating products that your listeners love and need. This is what Shanitra did. I helped her with promoting this or, thinking through the strategy for this. And she was making these shirts anyway. People kept asking her for this. So, she went a lane where she didn't have to hold a lot of inventory, but could sell product. And of course, there's sponsorships. Of course, that's the number one that people want to come in and pitch. And the thing about this, okay, so this was Tolu's story. Tolu Garcia is another Podcast Moguls alum. I even interviewed her on my podcast, Side Hustle Pro. She posted this post, and I am sharing with her permission. She wrote how it started, how it's going. So how it started was she joined Podcast Moguls with just ideas, no show, no firm final decision on which show to launch. And by going through the course and the coaching calls, she landed on launching her podcast, the UI Narrative Podcast, all about people of color working in UI interface design, user interface design, and their different career paths. And her show was so well designed for discoverability and for tapping into a niche audience. Emphasis on niche, because this wasn't a huge show. She was 6 months into podcasting and Google came calling. They emailed her to sponsor her show because it was so good and targeted. And that's who they wanted to talk to. Okay. So that is what I teach you and coach you through. You can pitch sponsors, and sponsors will also discover you when you're able to get found and they know exactly who you're talking to. And you can also use your podcast as a magnet. You see how many ideas are out there, y'all? You can use your magnet as a client, you can use your podcast as a magnet for your client-based business. So let me know if anyone has a client-based business in the chat. But if you do, now your podcast becomes your first entryway for your future clients, right? This is what Lori has done. She says, I launched a podcast using my moguls training that is pretty much a sales funnel to attract creative writing students and coaching clients. A sales funnel, y'all. She says, I'm seriously following the Nicaila Matthews Okome methodology, and I'm continuing to see results and growth in my business. Later this year, I'll be hosting my first writing retreat in the south of Spain. So this is, by the way, Lori's website, her sanctuary. I love the word sanctuary. And so she has the podcast. Then you land on her website and you're like, I want to be a part of a sanctuary. Who would sanctuary? So she has a monthly community for writers, right, to be a part of. That means monthly recurring revenue, y'all. She has retreats. She has one-on-one coaching, so many options, and they all funnel into those services through the podcast. And then finally, you can also create a paid subscription, right? You can create additional bonus content for your listeners and viewers, and then have different tiers for them to subscribe to. Again, recurring revenue. So the options are endless. It's about what do you want to do and what makes the most sense for your community. All right. No matter what you do, though, you're going to have to evaluate and grow. Okay. Your first money maker, it doesn't have to be perfect or all buttoned up. It just needs to offer value, offer education, be creative with integrity, be creative with the audience's best interest in mind. All right. When you are part of Podcast Moguls, I want you to come to me with something ugly. I want you to show me an ugly opt in page. I want you to show me the ugliest thing possible that you're going to get out there. Because most of the time, the people who come to me with the prettiest website in the world, they've waited too long. They have been working on that. They've been working on that for years. Okay. Time is of the essence. Let's go out and put our things into the world so we can evaluate and grow. Okay. Do it ugly and share it with me and get my feedback as your coach. All right. Get feedback early, get feedback often so we can refine and we can grow. Then we're going to improve the offers. Okay. Because podcasts that don't make money, they don't test enough. Remember what I said about the gym? You cannot get a six pack with one time in the gym. You cannot think about the six pack, then go to the gym and boom, you have it. Okay. Podcasts that don't make money, they don't test enough, they don't do enough reps, and then they give up after the first few streams don't work. Okay. That first day after the workout, you're going to be sore. You cannot stop there. Okay. The first time you launch, you might get your feelings hurt. You cannot stop there. Okay. You can't make money if you're not putting in effort, evaluating, and growing. And this is exactly why I coach my students inside of the Podcast Moguls Group Coaching Program. This is exactly why I created Podcast Moguls Group Coaching, because I realize that people need to push past those fears. They need to push past those blocks that keep them stuck in content creation and perfection and so-called building and wanting to be quality before launching, but then not launching for years. I want you to push past that. I want to show you how to do this. And I want to help you build a podcast that becomes your exit plan so that you can create the freedom and the income and the impact that you've been dreaming about. Simple as that. And inside of my Podcast Moguls Group Coaching, I teach you my proven strategies. Okay. So I teach the strategies to podcasters who want to turn their voice, okay, emphasis on voice, into their next chapter and income stream using a podcast. So option one, y'all, you are welcome to keep trying to DIY your podcast with tips gathered all over social media, all over TikTok, all over YouTube. But option two today is to decide to make podcasting a priority and get my coaching to know exactly which steps to take. I shared with you the real power of podcasting and what you really need to get into podcasting for. And so option two is to decide that. So I'm going to share a little bit more about Podcast Moguls with you, and then I'm going to drop the link. Okay. So first and foremost, you are invited to join Podcast Moguls. Okay. This living room, this is my former 1-bedroom apartment where I started Podcast Moguls, from this living room. Okay. Recording at nighttime after work. And now I have a podcast with 10 million downloads, multiple six figures each year, been featured on the Today Show. I'm getting chills and almost tearing up. I have to change the slide because I'm tearing up, okay? Podcast Moguls is for you if you want to turn your podcast or podcast idea into the foundation of your exit plan. It's for you if you want to learn proven business strategies to grow, monetize, and leverage your show into real opportunities. It's for you if you want to get direct access to my podcast mentorship through monthly live coaching. We just had live coaching this past Tuesday, and our private community. And if you want to also be surrounded by a network of ambitious podcasters who are growing, monetizing, and building freedom together, it's definitely for you. This year, I also want to organize some in-person things. I'm in New York. If you're anywhere in the tri-state or close on the East Coast, it's something you might be able to come to, right? Because this is a very powerful community that we are building. And Podcast Moguls is for you if you want to stop guessing and figuring this out on your own and start executing on a clear, tested roadmap. Podcast Moguls is for you if you want someone to push you into action too. Like I said, I'm going to be your coach to push you past the fears and the stagnation. And I took this quote The other day I saw this and I screenshotted this because it's just so true when it comes to this podcasting. You don't learn to swim by reading about water. You do not make money by reading about making money, then launching that first thing. That's not how it goes. But I am here. Once you jump in that water, I'm going to be on the sidelines telling you, nope, this is how you do it. Nope, keep going. Breathe, breathe. Right? I'm going to be your strategic advisor every step of the way because I love this so much. So, Podcast Moguls, it has three parts. Okay. Part one is the course itself. Now, these are on demand lessons that you can get to cover everything. They're video lessons, tutorials that cover everything from literally how to get started, how to set it up, how to get on Apple, to how to market, how to grow your email list, how to pitch sponsors. You get my exact templates and files, the pitches I'm using now, the media kits I'm using now. You get all of that. Okay. So there's no guesswork when it comes to the actual literal how to of this game. Then part two is the community. So that's our private community where you can ask questions, get answers outside of our group coaching calls, post your wins, your challenges, and get feedback. It's our private community where, when we're ready to do something in person, this is where you'll hear it first. And then part three is my favorite part. That is the coaching. We meet monthly for video group coaching calls with me. You receive personal guidance from me during these calls. I stay as long as I need to answer every single call at length, thoroughly. So anytime you have a question, not only can you email me, but when we have our live group coaching calls, that is when we meet. And by the way, stick around for fast action because if you also register within the fast action period, you also get a one-on-one call with me. So we have our special time together too for me to really understand your show or your future show and what you're trying to do. So you can have, results like Tolu and 6 months in be getting approached by sponsors. Okay. So this is what Shirley of the She's Got Drive podcast had to say about her experience. She says, when she joined, I had at that point 25,000 downloads. And in the last 3 months, I'm now at 46,000 downloads. Her strategy absolutely works. And then this is Fritz of the Coin Gamma podcast. Now, Fritz is a cool, calm, and collected dude. Okay. He did not come into Podcast Moguls to be nobody's influencer, anything like that. He just really enjoyed nerding out about cryptocurrency and coins. And he's like, okay, let me start a podcast. And because of being in Podcast Moguls and following the steps, of course, he got found. He says, I was able to speak at over 5 conferences last year, even being flown in internationally to speak at conferences. It all came because of the podcast. That's what I want for you, beloved. That is what I want for you. You want a little vacation along with your speaking engagement? That is what I want for you. Okay. So here's what you're getting inside of Podcast Moguls. You're getting my monthly live coaching sessions. That alone is 4,000. If we had a one-on-one call, not a part of your bonus, that would be $1,000, right? Let's say you only came to 4 sessions, which by the way, you can come for a lifetime. Okay, Podcast Moguls is not restricted to a year. So there are people, OGs who come back who joined 2 years ago. So, but let's say you only came for 4 sessions. That's already a $4,000 value of time with me getting my coaching. Then you're getting annual community access. You can search right now for podcast communities that are really legit strategic advisor communities, and they're charging upwards of $197 a month, and that's annually. So that means that's $2,364 a year to be a part of those podcast communities where an expert podcaster will answer your question. And I'm not even charging you that for Podcast Moguls, but you get the community included with Podcast Moguls, okay? Plus, you're getting all of my tailored, customized to podcasting pitch emails and media kits. And you know what to learn and understand how to pitch sponsors. I paid $1,197 for an intensive, and I'm not even charging you $1,197 for Podcast Moguls. Okay. Plus, you're getting my guest pitch templates by themselves. People charge upwards of $597 to have expert crafted pitch emails to get high power guests on your show. You get the exact emails I use to interview everyone inside of Podcast Moguls, and I also share when I update those emails, so you get what's working right now. Plus, you get Master the Gram. So that's my tailored Instagram program which by itself, if you go to my site, is $297. And you get that included with your enrollment in Podcast Moguls. Plus, every time I update that, you will also get access to the update. Plus, you get the Goal Getter Action Plan. That is my other mini course, my productivity approach for the 12-week sprints that I do to get it done. All right. This is how I side hustled and grew podcasts on my podcast on the side. So I want this for you because it is not easy. So I include this in your enrollment. So if you're adding this all up on your own or you screenshot this into ChatGPT and he added it up, that's a total value of $8,553. I'm obviously not going to charge nobody that. So the regular price of Podcast Moguls is $3,000, but the promotional price for coming to this class, for being here with me, is two options: $997 pay in full, or $250 a 4-month payment plan. So $250 each month. You can start registering right now over at sidehustlepro.co/podcast moguls. I'm going to drop the link for you. And I want to share something else with you. Okay. I'm also going to drop the direct link. So let me go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I do this by myself, y'all. I go ahead and drop this webinar by myself. So I'm going to give you the direct order form. Okay. Let me make sure I'm linking to everybody. Okay. All right. Here we go. Y'all got that? All right. So Tamashia says, when does the offer expire? So you have access. And by the way, y'all, well, I was about to share the sales page, but I think I'll continue on the slides for today since we are a little over time. Let me know if you can see my slides. Give me a yes in the chat. So this offer is for the next 48 hours. You will see my reminder emails, okay, through Sunday. You can get this promotional price and access to the fast action bonus. There are some caveats though, okay? Membership lasts, it's lifetime membership. I started Podcast Moguls and I have, OGs who come back who joined in 2022, 2023, right? Because of the value. Sometimes you just need a touch base on something. You're in a different phase of your podcast journey. So they will pop in, okay? So this is not a yearly thing. This is not a you lose access after 12 months, 6 months. I know some people like to do that. I don't find value in that and keeping track of who's had the program for 6 months or 12 months. I don't find value in that. I find value in supporting you through getting your exit plan together because we all need this exit plan, okay? We need to have options. That's the number one thing. I don't promise you, oh, you'll quit your job in a year. I promise you that you will have options once you launch your show. And the options can look like whatever you want it to be. Okay. We're about to get into that. Some of the options that, Podcast Moguls alums have used, but Podcast Moguls is to give you options. So again, you can pay in full, $997, or you can do the payment plan, 4 monthly payments of $250. I don't care which one you do. Why? Because I love a payment plan myself. My current coach and I, we are on a payment plan. Okay. I love a payment plan. And so you don't get penalized for the payment plan. It's pretty much the same price. And I know you have to do what's best for you. So 2 options. And if you join right now, let me know. I'm not over there in Stripe, but when you join, let me know so I can shout you out. I can't wait to work with you. Okay. So you're getting the same thing, whether you pay in full or you do the 4 payment plan, which is the monthly live coaching sessions, the annual community access, all of my sponsorship pitch letters and media kits, the guest pitch templates, plus Master the Gram, plus the Goal Getter Action Plan. Okay. All of that is included in both payment options. Now, there are some fast action bonuses. These bonuses only apply if you enroll in the next 48 hours only, okay? Then you get these extras. Number 1 is the one-on-one phone call with me, okay? We will meet together on Zoom. It will be recorded. My note taker will be there, so you and I can just be present with each other, and you will share with me where your mind is, what your challenges are, what your questions are. The sessions is just about you. Now, I will say, due to bandwidth, okay, I can only accommodate the first 5 people only. So if you know for sure that you want to do Podcast Moguls and you want a one-on-one call with me, make sure you register as soon as possible. Today, now would be recommended because I can only do the first 5 people only, okay? So another fast action bonus is my exact podcast workflow template. This year will make 10 years of Side Hustle Pro, y'all. And I have released an episode every single week. Even if it meant doing a rewind episode, aka a rerun, I have released an episode every single week. And this has been through working my 9 to 5 job. This has been through having 2 kids, maternity leaves, recovery, postpartum, all the things. Release an episode every single week. So this podcast workflow template will hold you down. If you struggle with consistency as it relates to podcasting, and consistency is so important in this journey, it does half the work for you. Again, you release an episode, it's being discovered in your sleep. So make sure you're releasing your episodes. So this workflow will help you to streamline your production and publish consistently without overwhelm. Then you're also going to get my podcast equipment starter kit. So this is my curated list of affordable, high quality gear so you can sound like a pro from day one. This is my podcast closet studio. Some of you may have seen. I like to podcast from different places, either my bedroom or my podcast closet, which is a closet turned into an office, which I love so much. So we can talk about how to podcast. We do it lean around here. We keep the overhead low and we make the revenue high. Okay, that's the focus here. So if that's interesting to you, come on down. All right. Speaking of that, you're going to get my cold email pitches, including my pitch email that landed me my first $4,000 in sponsorship, and my pitch email that landed me my first international speaking engagement in Barbados. This is why I have Riri here, okay? Because I sent an email that got me an all expense paid trip to Barbados. It was an awesome vacation, my first time in Barbados. And I want that for you as well. If you're tired of hearing crickets when you do things like pitch, or you don't know where to begin, get this fast action bonus in your life. Do not miss out on this bonus, okay? And then finally, you're also going to get my 5-day branding blitz. So if you're ready to launch or relaunch, these are the strategies and the exact steps that landed me in the top charts in week 1. By itself, I sell this for $297, but it is included in Podcast Moguls. So I'm including so much for you because I am invested in your success. I'm invested in your success, okay? So here's just a quick rundown one more time. We're about to jump into Q&A. So also add your questions in the Q&A chat if you have them. We're about to jump in. Here's a quick rundown of all the fast action bonuses if you enroll in the next 48 hours, okay? You will get these extras. A one-on-one phone call with me so you can jumpstart your process. First 5 people only. My podcast workflow template so you can streamline production so you publish consistently without burnout. My podcast equipment starter kit, which is my curated list of affordable, high quality gear so you sound like a pro from day one. And then also my cold email pitches. So these are the exact pitches that landed me my first $4,000 sponsorship and my first international speaking gig, aka vacation to Barbados. And then finally, you'll get my 5-day branding blitz, which is the strategies that landed me in the Apple Podcast charts in week 1. If this is of interest to you, put fast in the chat and go ahead and grab that fast action bonus. Okay, let's grow. Kamisha, welcome Tiffany. Welcome everybody. If I missed anybody, let me know. I cannot wait to work with you. You will get the post email with all the links to set up your one-on-one call. Okay. Oh, Tamisha, I'm sorry. See, I can't be in the chat all day. That's why. Okay. Thank you for correcting me. I finally was able to see it. Sometimes when you write in all caps too, that helps me see it the most. So Tamisha, thank you for joining. I cannot wait to work with you. I cannot wait to grow your shows. Okay. Now let's jump into some Q&A. I'm going to stop the recording right now so that we can, this will be sent to you as a replay. Okay.